It's woodie time, because today I'm gonna be reviewing Twister at Gröna Lund in Stockholm, Sweden. I recently got to ride this coaster just a few weeks ago, and it is my first ever Gravity Group wooden roller coaster. Twister is a fantastic little ride located right next to Jetline and Kvasten and all these awesome rides in Gröna Lund, and it's certainly one of the weirdest coasters they have. As I said, it's made by Gravity Group as well as Gravitykraft, which is a sub-company to Gravity Group as far as I understand. Basically, it was the first coaster that Gravitykraft was involved in, and it was also the first coaster to ever originally open with Timberline trains, which is pretty cool. It's from 2011 and it's a hybrid woodie, basically meaning that it is a wooden roller coaster with wooden track and everything, but the support structure is all steel. So technically, this is actually my first hybrid roller coaster, because I haven't done RMCs and stuff. It's actually the smallest coaster in the park that is not a kiddie coaster, and that's actually pretty incredible considering how much of a punch this coaster packs. It's a super compact ride, and Gravity Group was incredibly creative in fitting this in and making it twist around itself and still stand as well as it does. On POVs it looks like you cannot keep your hands up because it's so compact that you would hit something with your hands, but actually you won't. Like, I was surprised at how much I could keep my hands up and not hit anything. Apart from like right here in the beginning, at the bottom of the lift hill you pass right under a turn and you can grope that track with your hand when you're progressing up the lift hill. It's actually kind of fun, and it's only like the third coaster I've ever touched the track off, if that even counts. The ride opened with the dark ride Blåtåget, which is also an amazing dark ride, and this is actually their first wooden roller coaster in the park since 1965. They used to have a coaster named Bergbana, which was an old scenic railway, and I'm actually quite surprised it took them this long to get a new woodie considering they're a classic Tivoli park, but it also makes sense considering how compact it is, and I really do think Gravity Group is the only company at all that would be able to fit such a small wooden roller coaster into this place. So big kudos to them. Theming wise, the coaster does not really have a theme per se. Basically, it's themed to other wooden roller coasters, which, I mean, that's pretty fun. Just like Wildermusen has a bunch of pictures of Wild Mouse coasters in its queue, Twister has a bunch of photos of other wooden roller coasters around the world, as well as just coasters that look like woodies, because they also have Incredicoaster, and I think we all know that's not a woodie. But yeah, it was pretty cool. The ride stands at 51 foot tall, so it really is super small, and it's also not very long, because it's only 1,544 feet long, and it only goes 38 miles an hour, so it's really small, it's not very fast. But one of the things that Gravity Group are so good at is still packing an intense layout into nothing. Gravity Group is so good at proving that size doesn't matter. Pun not intended, I swear. On the ride, you can find yourself a total of 10 possible airtime moments, depending on where you sit, of course. It's not one of those Gravity Group with inversions, of course, and it only has small 6-row, 12-rider trains, which makes sense considering how compact it is. The ride duration is actually pretty incredible considering its size, at 46 seconds of duration, so the ride doesn't feel short at all, and that's also because the pacing is a little weird. I briefly want to mention how it looks as well, because this ride is honestly beautiful. It's one of the prettiest coasters at the park, I think, because it's a wooden roller coaster first of all, and woodies just almost always look awesome, but also the colors and the steel structure is so nice. The steel structure is super clean to look at, and the white going against the brown and the red handrails, oh my god. This is one of the coolest looking wooden roller coasters I've ever seen, especially because of the layout and the fact that it's right next to the water. It's so beautiful. Anyway, let's get into the layout, because you start out with this very small lift hill. I'm not gonna lie, the lift hill is one of the roughest parts of the coaster. Not that it like throws you around at all, you just feel a bunch of jolts in your back, and it's fun, it's really fun. Already at the top of the lift hill, you see what Gravity Group does best. Super compact elements, because look at this turn. Can any other wooden roller coaster manufacturer do a turn this compact? I don't think so. Anyway, you go into this incredibly steep drop, and it is super steep. And I gotta say right now, before we get any further, that whether or not you sit in the front or the back is gonna make a massive difference, and I really mean massive. So in the front row, you're not really gonna feel anything apart from maybe a little bit of positive forces actually at the bottom of the drop, but in the back, holy shit, this drop is incredible. It's basically like a Pinfari Cyclone, but of course, really good. First of all, the lap bars are great and everything, and the airtime you get on this drop is just nuts, and also laterals. It's honestly one of my favorite first drops. It's amazing. Short, but really, really fun. Then you go into the camelback of the ride, and honestly, this was far stronger than I thought. I expected this ride to have some good ejector airtime and floater airtime every now and then, but not necessarily any strong airtime. Well, I was wrong. This camelback is really strong ejector, both in the front and the back row. But the great thing is if you sit in the back row, you get an extra pull over the hill, because the second part of the hill, the part where you're going downwards, is more compact than when you're going into the hill, meaning that while you're already out of your seat, if you sit in the back, when it goes down, you suddenly get an extra yank. You get yeeted a little extra downwards. It's really hard to explain, but it's super fun. It's a great airtime hill. You pass up into this fun overbank. It doesn't really do much, but this is one of those places where you just really enjoy the roughness of the coaster. I'm not saying it's super rough, it's not at all, but we'll get into that later. You have this very compact little element here that also gives some fun flojector airtime. Then you turn around, and then there's this fun drop here. This hill marks one of the weaknesses with the front row, and that's the fact that on some of the airtime hills, when you sit in the front, instead of really getting airtime, you're more or less getting pushed forwards, which is not really what you want. This is one of those hills that does it, but I mean, you still get out of your seat a little bit. However, it's definitely better in the back. In the back, you get the pull feeling instead, and you also get the airtime. It's much better there. But one of the things that's kind of unique about this hill is the fact that especially in the front, you're gonna get yanked to the left as well. It's like it stops banking a little too early, so you get a quick, almost wild mouse-like jolt to the side. It's really fun. You go down a turn and then you head upwards. In the front, you're gonna get some good ejector here, and in the back, you're actually gonna get really good floater airtime up into here. It's really fun. You turn around and then down another super compact drop that's very much like the first drop, just a little smaller and not quite as strong, but still really, really good in the back row and not really doing anything honestly in the front. Then there's this double up, which also grants some nice airtime in the front, but even better in the back. Once again, almost everything is better in the back. Let's just keep it at that. Except for the top part of the double up though. You're gonna get a little bit of floater in the front and nothing in the back here. Another turnaround, another really steep drop that is fantastic in the back row. And then you go through all of these zigzags. And even though these turns look underbanked, they're actually not. You're not really gonna get any laterals. And this is just like some of the other earlier turns, one of those moments where you're just appreciating the woody feel, the feel of the roughness on the coaster, instead of feeling forces, and that's why it's actually not boring going through these turns. As I mentioned, the coaster is not really super rough, but it does have a classic woody roughness in the fact that it is shaky, it bumps you a little around, it doesn't throw you around. It's definitely not brutal, but it has a perfect shake. Because I think every wooden roller coaster should be shaky, and this is what it is. It's honestly the perfect amount of shaky. It's really fun and not uncomfortable at all. And many of the turns in this coaster are where you really appreciate that shakiness. After about 3 turns, you have this little bunny hill here, and this is honestly where I was super disappointed on my first ride, because my first ride is this night ride in the front row, and here I was expecting some really fun airtime, and I didn't really get it. Instead, I just got pushed forwards into the restraints instead of really getting pushed upwards like airtime, and that was honestly kind of disappointing. However, in the back row, this airtime hill is really strong. This is some good ejector airtime in the back row, and it's just another one of those moments that really proves that the back row is far superior to the front. Because basically in the front, the coaster did not live up to my expectations, but in the back, my expectations were far exceeded. Also, by the way, after the hill, you turn into the brakes, and the brakes are really hard. Like, they brake you incredibly fast, and they're some of my favorite coaster brakes, especially in the back, because you brake like instantly after the turn. It's super fun. And that is basically the layout of Twister. It's super compact and very weird as well. It's easily the weirdest wooden roller coaster I've ridden, and I love it. It's a fantastic roller coaster, especially in the back row. Again, in the front row, it doesn't always live up to the expectations. Some of the airtime moments are just weird and push you forward, and the flow, like Villa Spirit says, is incredibly odd. Whereas in the back row, the flow is a lot better, it's a lot more fun, the airtime is stronger. Almost anything that's worth anything is better in the back. It's fantastic in the back. And again, with those Timberliner trains, the perfect amount of shakiness, the location as well, the sounds the track makes. One of the things that my friends Villas and Christopher have told me is the fact that this coaster has a very classic wooden feel. Basically, it feels like a classic old wooden roller coaster, even though it's only 10 years old. That's awesome. So those are actually all my thoughts on Twister. It's a super fun little coaster and one of the best coasters in the park. One of the best overall rides in the park, I think. And it got better and better the more I rode it. I definitely advise giving both the front and the back a go. And if you do both, do the front first so you can see how much better it is in the back. And it's a perfect fit for the park, honestly. It really matches the atmosphere incredibly well. So get out to Gröna Lund and ride Twister if you can. If you've already ridden it, let me know what you think. If you haven't, let me know what you think beforehand. Have you ridden any other gravity groups? Because in that case, tell me about them as well. Honestly, I'm curious at how this stacks up now that I know how this feels, but I don't know how any of the others feel. So tell me about your woodie. No, wait, no. Bye.